All right, young scholars, it looks like only about half of you saw that I posted the Zoom meeting info on Blackboard. That's what I'm going to be doing for all of our sessions going forward. I think it's probably just easier to do it that way as opposed to emailing everybody. My guess is you don't check your emails as often as you should, but you're probably checking Blackboard quite a bit. So today my plan is to review the example we did on Tuesday, where if you don't want to use a for loop, you can use the string.join to combine or concatenate strings together. Then we're going to create a basic array that will display 15 multiples of 10, but we're going to overwrite one of the elements, and we're going to use for loops to create our random values for that. Then we're going to create a two-dimensional array that will display a 5 by 10 array, and we're going to use for loops to create our values there as well. And then lastly, we're going to create an array of 10 doubles where we're going to allow the user to input those 10 doubles and then use a for loop to return all of the user inputs in reverse order. So we had some inputs in class on Tuesday where I showed you how to set up string inputs within an array. We had cat, pineapple, and orange. You could have outputted your inputs using a sentence. The student inputs were plus input string. And you see in the line before that, we're setting input string as a string that joins together the inputs from our inputs array, but separates them using commas. So you notice the output is a whole sentence. The student inputs were cat, pineapple, and orange. You could also do the same without having an actual sentence before it, simply outputting that result. So in this case, I set up a string result, string.join. We add the inputs together. We separate them via comma, and then print line our result. So it's just cat, comma, pineapple, comma, orange. And
Can
this,
you put that example on Blackboard?
yes, this example right here.
Yeah, with the string dot join.
Yep,
Thank you.
I'll do that after we end class today. Um, where was I? So yes, if you don't want to use a for loop, like we showed in class on Tuesday, you would do it this way with the string dot join. Although that's kind of a clue as to your homework. Some of you, I think a couple of you already did it. But like I said, you could either do your output using string.join or using a for loop. Either or is perfectly fine with me. Okay. So our second example here, we're going to create a basic array that will display a multiple that will display 15 multiples of 10, but overwrite one of the elements. And we're going to use for loops to create our values. So what should we name our class? Nobody? How about multiples? Does that work? So we're going to create an array, fill it with various integer values. And overwrite one of the value, then print it out. So now we're going to create our method, public static void main string args. So first we're going to set final integers, limit equal to 15, because we're only going to have 15 integers. And then our multiple will equal 10. All of our numbers are going to be multiplied by 10, multiples of 10. So now if we want to set up our array, who remembers from Tuesday how we do that? Lana, do you remember?
You have to do int, the bracket, straight bracket, and then the name of the array.
Yep. So we're
But
setting
but
them.
for final and limit, that's when you can, like, that's basically saying stop at 15.
Yep.
Go 15 times. Okay, thank you.
And we'll use that in the for loop. And we'll show you exactly how it works. So the limit is there's only going to be 15 numbers. The multiple is that they're all going to be multiples of 10. So what do we want to name our array?
Multiples.
We can't name it the same as our class.
Oh,
How about
multiple.
multiple instead? And we're going to set our array, instead of putting a number in there, we're going to put the variable limit. So instead of putting 15, we're putting limit because that's what we've established, our number of elements. So again, it'll be 15 elements because that's what limit is defined as. And the index will run 0 through 14. So here we're creating our array list. Which will have 15 integers in it. So now we're going to use a for loop to create the array values. So we're going to create an integer index, which is going to equal 0, because our index always starts at 0. So as long as index is less than limit, our for loop will continue to run and add 1 to the index. With the index plus plus, that's our incrementer. The index will continue to be added. So it'll start at 0, go to 1, go to 2, go to 3, go to 4, until it gets to 14, and then it will stop. So then we need to set what our array values will be. So we do that. We named our array here multiple. We put the index inside of our brackets. And we now define it as index times multiple. And make sure you differentiate. The array is called multiple in undercase. Our integer is multiple uppercase. So now we're going to overwrite one of the array values. Which element should we overwrite, Calvin? No, Calvin's not here. Amelia, which element should we overwrite?
So you're looking at for int index times multiple. Multiple, you should overwrite index, no?
Yep, but which number? Anyone from 0 to 14. Which one do you want to do?
Oh, I can, is this my choice or
Yep.
is this something you, oh, okay. I like the number 7.
Okay, so we're going to overwrite our element from number 7. Lano, what number should we put in index 7?
35.
35?
So for line 15, that's basically just going in the array and timesing everything by 10.
Yep.
Okay.
Multiplying everything by 10. So, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, all the way up until 140. Because we're starting at 0, remember?
Professor, just a question.
Go ahead.
Like, going off of that, is it like okay if somebody would have put like what you're doing in terms of overriding the index 7 and equaling it to 35 before you add that stipulation where you're multiplying it by 10, or it doesn't matter?
It shouldn't matter, but we'll check once we finish the second for loop, which prints out our values. So lastly, we have to print out the array values.
Sorry, Professor. So I have Grace's number, and she wanted to let you know that she can't access the Zoom link from Blackboard. If you could email it to her, that would be great. I mean, obviously you're in the middle of class right now, but that's what she's letting me know.
Okay. Help is on the way, dear. Nobody remembers that from Mrs. Doubtfire?
Oh yes, Mrs. Doubtfire, I remember.
Okay, tell her it's on the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so for us to print out our values, we're going to do int value colon multiple.
Why are we using a colon?
In between them.
No, yeah, like can you explain line 20?
Oh, why are we using the colon to differentiate between them?
Yeah.
That is now putting all of the information from the multiple array we created here into that integer value.
Oh, okay.
And now we print out our values. And if we run this, what are the 15 numbers we should have?
So it would go through, from what I'm understanding, like 0 would be 10, all the way down to the index 7, and that would be 35 instead of like I guess like 70, and then it would continue back down.
Yep. So it'd be 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And then instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, instead of the 60, it'll be 35. And then continue 70, 80, 90, 100, all the way up to 140. So assuming I did all of this right and did not miss anything, let's run it. Does everybody have this same error? Let's change our class name to something easier. Let's try basic array instead. Let's change our int array multiple to li instead of multiple. I think it's having an issue with,
Oh, because they're both named multiple.
yeah. So let's try changing all of the multiples to li. It doesn't like me. What am I missing here? The for loop is set up right. Let's name all these lists. It just doesn't like me today. Let's see if it runs properly in a different online Java compiler.
Yeah, this compiler doesn't like me either.
I think starting next week, we're going to switch off to a different one. So now I'm switching over to the W3 schools. And I'll post that link too. Nope, still giving me an error.
Our professor in programming one also used like Runestone Academy like as a replacement too. So I'm not sure if maybe you want to try that one.
There we go. Okay, so if you get rid of the public and then run it, it works perfectly fine. So you notice it's 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, the 35 in place of our 7th index, because that's what we did with this line of code here. 80, 90, 100, all the way through 140. So let's go back to our other and see if that runs properly. Yep, perfect. So the issue was that we had this class set up as public initially. Once you get rid of the public, everything works properly. Hey, Grace, welcome. Okay. So again, the issue was just having public in front of class. So, Zaza, what's your favorite number?
I like number 3.
You like 3? So if we change this from 3 to 7, our 35 now replaces the 20. Wait. 0, 1, 2. Now it'll replace the 30. Yep. So 3, it's always your element minus 1 is what it is on the index.
Okay.
So whatever the 8th number here is would be 7. Whatever the 4th number here is the 3rd index. Okay. So that is now set up Do you want me to post that code too?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so our next task, number 3 here, we're going to create a 2-dimensional array that will display a 5 by 10 array using for loops to create our values. Like I told you on Tuesday, it's easier when you have a situation where either the user's inputting the information or you do it yourself. But just because, we want to practice with for loops, remind everybody what these were from programming 1. So I'm going to call my class here 2D array. We're going to create a 2D array of integers and fill them with increasing values using a for loop, then print them out. So now we need to set up our method. And we're creating a 2-dimensional array. So there's 2 sets of brackets here instead of 1. And what do we want to call our 2-dimensional array here? Box, table, what do we want to call it?
Table
Table.
is good.
Table, okay. So if we're doing this 5 by 10, what goes in each box?
One has 5 and the other has 10.
Yep. If we're doing 5 by 10, the 5 goes in the first box and the 10 goes in the second box.
Bye, ladies. Come back. You'll let us know for next week. Well, we had it booked, but we don't know when we're gonna go. Okay, well, we have a book, but we can cut it.
And just to clarify, the 5 would be the rows, the 10 would be the columns.
Right, I just don't know what
Yes.
they wanna do. They might.
So 10 columns, 5 rows.
I'll ask what they wanna do, all right?
So it'll be number, then below it, 5 times as the columns, and then the 10 across would be the rows. So columns here is 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going down, and then 10 is the rows. There'll be 10 numbers across. So now we're going to create a for loop to create our values. We're going to create an integer called row and set it as 0. So our first number on the first row will be 0. Then so long as row is less than our table length, we're going to continue to add a row. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I noticed, I think you spelled length wrong.
I spelled what? Oh, length wrong? Very good. Thank you. That would not have run if I did not spell length correct. We need to do the same for the column now. Start our column initially at 0. And as long as it's less Then our row length, we continue to add another column. So that means once we hit the 5th row, no more columns are made after columns finishes out. So now in this instance, instead of 5 by 10, we do row by column. And now we multiply our row by 10 and add column. Who can tell me what that's going to do? This whole set of code here.
So line 9 creates the rows going up to 5. 10 creates the columns going up to 10. And then 11 puts it together and multiplies the row by 10.
Yep. So it should start at the number 0, go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's your first row with 10 numbers. Then your next row should be 10 through 19. Then your next row should be 20 through 29. Then your next row should be 30 through 39. Then your last row should be 40 through 49. So the column add here is so that the next one in the column is 10 more than what is right above it. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I think I also need to see like how it would run in
Okay,
order to get it.
so you'll have to see the visual. That's the next step here. Print our table. So now we're going to create a for loop. Int row equals 0, so long as row is less than table length.
Also, Professor Grace wants you to explain it again.
Expand again.
No, to explain it again.
Oh, okay. So on line 9, we're using a for loop to start our row at 0 and then increase by 1 every time it goes through, as long as our row is less than our table length. So it's going to produce 1 row, 2nd row, 3rd row, 4th row, 5th row across, and there won't be a 6th row because we're only doing 5 rows by 10 columns. Then line 10, we're basically doing the same thing, but for the column. Start with that 0 column, then the 1 column, then the 2 column, then the 3 column, then the 4 column, then the 5 column, then the 6 column, the 7th column, the 8 column, the 9 column, because we're starting at 0. And then line 11, that first row will be 0 through 9. The second row will be 10 through 19. The third row, 20 through 29, etc. So when you go down the column, it's 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. Everything in the column is being added by 10. And you'll see that once we print it out. So now we have to create a nested for loop inside this for loop. And within that, we're going to do the same we did above, but for column. Because we only want to create a new column as long as we have new rows to put in it. Oops. So basically exactly the same as we did up here, separate. However, we're now doing it in order to print out our results. So system.out print table row by column. Now what do we have to add here?
Space or
Different lines. What?
saying this space.
Nope. What breaks up different lines? What code?
LN.
Oh, as in like the escape new line.
Yep. The /T to have us give a new line. And then we need a semicolon there. And then system.out.println with our semicolon. So we're doing the same thing as we did above. Now we're printing it out. So like I said, when we run this, it should be 0 through 9, 10 through 19, 20 through 29, 30 through 39, and 40 through 49. What did I do wrong here? Yep, smart again. So make sure you spell everything correctly. Because I set it up initially as col, then I change it to column below. So make sure everything matches. Col, 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 row, 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 row. So Zaza, you wanted to see how it visually lines up?
Oh yeah, I see it now.
So that's what our initial for loop is doing. You see how there's 5 rows across and 10 columns going down? And we're starting at 0 for each of them and just adding 1. And then this line of
Also,
code.
so line 11 times the first column by 10, basically.
Yep. So this
Okay.
line of code, line 11, makes it where 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. It's just adding 10 to everything. Because we're adding 1 as we go across the row. And then we're adding 10 as we go down the column. Does that make sense?
So how come you didn't times 10 after column?
Because the initial number of row is 0.
Oh, okay.
So when you multiply that by 10, it's 0. Then you add the column again, it's 10.
Okay.
And I'll put this example also on Blackboard. Okay, now one last example, and then you're all free to escape for the week. Some of you I'll see again on Monday. Okay, in the last example, we're going to create an array with 10 doubles that the user's going to input, and then we're going to use a for loop to return those values in reverse order. So if we're getting input from a user, what's the first and most important thing we need to do?
Scanner.
Yep, import the scanner class. So import java.util.scanner, semicolon. Now, as I mentioned before, you guys don't have to write in these extensive comments like I do. Like I showed you, that's just kind of the way I go about thinking. So I'm going to create a class here called reverse order. And then create my class, or my method rather. So what's the first thing we need to do if we're going to use the scanner class?
Isn't it like new scanner?
Yep.
Um,
So we're going to call it scan. So scanner scan equals new scanner system.in. And this retrieves input from the user. Next, we have to create an array. If we're creating an array of 10 doubles, what do we name the array? Or how do we define the array, create the array? Do we put int? Do we put string? What goes first?
double.
Yep. We're doing 10 doubles, so it should be double bracket bracket. Or what do we want to call our array? Numbers? Let's just call it numbers. That's easy. So double array numbers equals new double. And since we have 10, we're going to put 10 there. We could have randomly created, like we did in the previous example where we set a value and put the value here instead. So, like we did previously, limit equals 10 and then put limit here instead. Either way is perfectly fine. So this creates an array that will accept 10 doubles. Next, we're going to print out the size of the array. And how do I print the size? The name of our array here.
Dot length.
Yep. So in this instance, it would be numbers.length. And then make sure you have your semicolon at the end. Now we're going to create a for loop that will continue to accept user input until 10 doubles are inputted. So again, we create our index. We started at 0. And as long as the index is less than our numbers.length, we continue to add to our index. So with 10 numbers, our index is 0 through 9. So the for loop will continue to run until index is no longer less than that length. So once it gets to that index of 10, it's not going to run because there's nothing there. So now within that for loop, we have to print out what we're asking from our user. We're asking them to enter a number. And here we're doing index plus 1. Who knows what that is?
That will allow the user to see the numbers like not indexed. So instead of it starting at 0, it'll just be 1.
Yep. So this 15 line is going to say enter number 1. You enter number 1. Then it'll say enter number 2. You'll enter number 2. Enter number 3. You'll enter number 3, etc., etc. And we'll go through all 10 times. And lastly, within that for loop, we have to be able to accept the numbers in our index. So we do numbers, index, equals, scan, next double. So that is now storing the numbers that you input as the user into its appropriate index. So the first number will go in 0, the second number will go in 1, the third number will go in 2, etc. Okay, so now we jump out of that for loop, and now we need to output the numbers in reverse order. So the numbers in reverse order will be our first printout. And now we create another for loop below it, which is going to do the opposite of what we did earlier. So instead of starting at 0 for our index, it's going to be whatever the length is for the array minus 1. So we have 10 numbers, the index is 9. Remember that? And then in this case, the index is going to be greater than or equal to 0 instead of less than the numbers dot length. So it's the reverse of what we did earlier. So based on that, what would the reverse be of index plus plus? What's the opposite of increment?
You're gonna decrease it, so it's index and the negative sign.
Yep, it'll be index minus minus because it's a decrement. And then lastly, we have to print out our array. So it'll be numbers. Inside the box will be index. And then we'll create a space. So depending on what IDE you're using to run this code, it might either print it one line at a time or one number with a space in between. So let's try and run this. And hopefully I didn't make any spelling errors like normal. Okay, so the size of the array is 10, which is what we did here in line 10. Now it's asking us for number 1, which is our entire first for loop here. So what 10 numbers should we input? Lana, give me the first 3.
85, 23, and 4.
Okay, so 85. Enter the second number is 23, you said?
Yeah.
Then enter again, and the third number Lana said was 4. And we enter. All right, who wants to give the next three numbers? Amelia?
Any numbers?
Any three numbers? Yep.
13,
13,
26,
26,
7.
and 7. Okay? Who wants to give the last four numbers? 7. Wait, no. Who wants to give the next three numbers? For 7, 8, and 9.
I guess I can give them.
Okay, go ahead.
Just a concern also, isn't it double? Or it could just give like any number.
It's double, but I'm putting them in as integers just to show you exactly what's going to happen.
Oh, okay.
Good point.
9,
9, okay.
12,
12,
and then I don't know, 105.
105, okay. And then I'm going to put the last number in as 17.8. What do you think? And Zaza kind of jumped the gun on this. What do you think is going to happen to all these numbers that are just integers right now?
It's gonna turn them all into doubles.
Yep. So the 85 will become 85.0. The 23 will become 23.0. The 920 will be 9.0, etc. So now that I've put in all 10 numbers, let's get rid of this stupid ad here. 17.8, that's the last number I put in, right? 105.0, 12.0, 9.0, 7.0, 26.0, 13.0, 4.0, 23.0, and 85.0. So this first for loop sets it up where we enter all these values, 1 through 10. Then this second for loop spits them out in reverse order. And you'll notice, since we set this array up to be doubles, that even if you put in an integer value, it converts it to a double. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Good. Okay, so that is all I was hoping to cover today. If there are no questions, I just want to remind you that the homework where you're being asked to use an array to display all of the kids, young scholars in class, is very similar to the example we did on Tuesday, and I reminded you all of when we started today. I will put all of this code up onto Blackboard for you to review. Should I put it all in one like document or put each one separate?
Can you put it separate?
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
So I'll put all 4 of them separate for you. And other than that, the homework where you're going to print out all of the young scholars in class. Will be due Monday night. I think 2 or 3 of you already submitted it, which is perfectly fine, but if you have not, make sure it's done by Monday night at 11:59. Since this one, like I said, is a little easier than our first programming assignment, I'm more or less expecting a lot of 3s out of 3s on this one. So if there are no questions, I will bid all of you adieu and see you next Tuesday. Except for the couple of you that are in mobile apps, I'll see you on Monday.
Bye, Professor.
Have a
Okay,
good
bye,
night.
Professor. Have a good evening.
Bye, Professor.